let's go on to the auditory. I'm looking at page number 2. Can you tell us what they learn best by?
For which one?
Auditory learners.
Auditory. They learn best by verbal lectures, discussions, talking things through, listening to the words of others, and taping lectures and playing it back.
Uh-huh. That's good, huh? All right. Tim, do you have it with you? Oh, you just look at his. Study best by
listening in class, discussing information in groups, reciting, studying notes.
Yes, good. Okay, so those are just some ideas, all right, that you can incorporate. Any questions or any comments of ideas, other ideas that you could do for an auditory learner? How about give them a podcast?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Or for students who weren't there, tape, record that and actually have them listen to it if they're auditory and they're not going to be there. That's another thing that would be good. Telling stories, yes.
Reading out loud if you're going to read.
Mm-hmm. Reading out loud. Actually, and this is like not teaching. This is actually helping people with their relationship with God. We need to have prayer, right? But sometimes we are in our head and we're not actually engaged. Even in our head, it's like too much. It's like actually too much noise going on in our hearts and minds and heads. And so one of the things I say is go somewhere where you can pray out loud, because you actually, when you're hearing it, it's like something changes. It becomes objective. And then for a visual person, I say journal. So, and then for the kinesthetic person, you can act it out or, share with someone maybe. So, those are all different ideas even within prayer. So, all right, let's look at the next one, which is the kinesthetic in this particular case. Gabe, can you read the learn best by?
Yes. Being physically involved, hands-on activities, movement.
Great, you can keep going. Study best by?
Demonstrating movement in their work, exercising while reading, walking while reciting their notes.
Yes. So this is what I tell people, especially in SBS, because or Bible, you have to do a lot of sitting, is you can also actually have them go and exercise before they sit down and study. Or if they feel like they're getting really sleepy, they need to get up and they need to actually do some sort of exercise. Because it wakes up, and I've already said this yesterday or the day before, it wakes up that side of the brain that is going to sleep, and it helps them to engage and learn better. All right, so having them exercise or do something really active before they sit in a lecture helps them as well. All right? Any ideas, other ideas that are coming to you as you listen to this? Or have you seen somebody do something?
Another idea, more like a question, is like in a normal classroom setting, without it becoming distracting for others, how do you incorporate the kinesthetic?
Right. Well, actually, we'll do something tactily, which is less distracting. I also understand that if they stand up, they'll be better. So I'll allow them to stand in the back so that they can listen during that. If note-taking isn't a big thing, they can do something with their hands. So some women will crochet. So that's a woman. I mean, some men do that too, so I shouldn't say it that way, but yeah, they can do something with their hands like that. There's these, they're called koosh balls. They have that playing with, or a pen, as long as they're not making sounds, because the sound is kind of distracting. So there's different things you can get like gooey, like things that you can knead, or that those are helpful for. As he's like going through his fingers. So those are things that you can do as well. As a teacher, I make people get up. That's why I said, get up, out of your seats, get up. We need to get moving. So I'm conscious of what their body language is telling me, and if they're really tired and if they're not engaged with me, then I'm like, okay, everybody get up. And then so those are things. I'm watching, but I'm also allowing them to have the space that they need to do those things. If, like I just had you do that whole race, that's something, if you can incorporate it, if it makes sense in what you're doing, do something like that. It's fun. Gets everybody engaged, laughing, and completely, yeah, it's a really good thing to do. I will say visual and auditory are always the strongest, always. They are always the strongest. One of the things that we incorporated when we were teaching the Bible overseas is we would get our students to act out the Bible story. So that was a kinesthetic activity right there.
But versus, like if I was to teach an elective that's like more skill-based, or
Yes.
any teaching that's
Yes.
more like a skill or a hobby,
Yes.
it's probably more of a kinesthetic. Even if
Yeah.
that's maybe not their normal way of learning,
Yeah.
it's probably more what you have to go
Right.
towards.
If you're doing a skill, actually them seeing a demonstration helps as well. So, yeah.
Why is it that we consider like kinesthetic more of like a adolescent type of thing? Like, do
Why
people
is
age
that?
out of that?
Do they? No. You're right. They don't. Why do we do that?
Because we should have better self-control when we get older.
We get lazy. Let's just be honest. As you get older, you get more sedentary, and you don't move as much. I mean, that's just a normal thing. And so it's something that I think that people who are older that move more, like if they are continually moving. I just saw some guy who his thing was every day he would basically touch his toes, and he was like almost over 100 or something in New Zealand. And it was like those people who continually move. I'm watching a gal, an Australian woman, is her granddaughter is videotaping her and sending it on Facebook. It's very cute. It's called Daffy's Wisdom or Daffy's Words or something on Facebook. And she just swears, and it's pretty hilarious. But anyway, because Australians do that. Anyway, so she every day she gets up and she sits in a kind of walker type of thing. But every day she does the dishes and she does laundry and she goes out in the yard and does some gardening and weeding, and she does it every single day because she knows that if she stops, she'll stop. And so we get lazy. We do. So we have to keep moving. It's actually part of how God made us. So even the people who aren't kinesthetic, they're still got some kinesthetic, every single one of us. So.
I just found it interesting that I've never really thought about it, but when watching movies, when doing things, I always play with my nails.
Yeah.
And I find myself also playing with that, and I never considered myself a
kinesthetic?
Or never ever.
No. We actually were talking about, because we were all talking about what are our strengths, and I said, so what do you think Marnie is? And they said visual and kinesthetic.
But I never considered myself that.
Right.
Never.
Yeah. Right. So I didn't think I was either, but I am very much. When I think about dancing and being outside and all the things that when I told you what my extracurricular activities were, that's basically it. So and guitar was a kinesthetic. I mean, there's a kinesthetic part. I mean, I am musical too, so that's part of it as well, which is a modality. You'll understand that a little bit more. Not a modality, multiple intelligence. So.
Josh and Marty from Wyoming Furnace,
Mm-hmm.
when they spoke here, they would have everybody get up on their chairs and like stand and then say like the major points they wanted to get across. So if it was like the whole goal was like, they would do the 4 R's, and so it would be like, the main
Right.
goal here was repentance. It's like, when we repent, we stand up on our chairs.
Yep.
So I just think of like that, like everybody remembers the chair moments and what they said in the chair moments.
Mm-hmm.
But that's about all people remember from that week. So it's
Interesting.
just an interesting thing. I didn't even put that together.
Right. It's really good to see that actually that's something that's helped you in that. Back to auditory, when I was in my SBS, we had a guy come in and teach us this key verse for different, not all of them, but some of our key verses for some of the Bible books. And I remembered them because, and that was in 1990, 91. So, I mean, that's a long time ago, because Galatians 5:1, because we learned this song for Galatians. So, anyway.
And the values. And as Jesse did that
Yes,
in your
you can
master's
do
program,
values.
I learned it in your master's program. The values with like our hand gestures, hearing the voice.
Oh,
of
that's a
God.
good idea.
And then it was like,
That's
so now
All of our
staff and students know the values by their number, because like it was 11 student leadership or servant leadership, and then it was like
I want to learn them.
12 was like do first, then teach.
Wow.
So it's just like this thing, and like all of us had struggled every time
Oh.
we got convicted and yelled at by Paul Hawkins for not knowing the values.
Totally.
And it was like we know them and live them out, but we might not know them like
Right.
by what's value 13. It's like,
Sure.
I don't know.
Great. Okay, let's look at the tactile one. It's on the next page. I'll say it. Hands-on activity, manipulating objects, using flashcards, working problems, retyping, rewriting notes. So tactile, that's one of the reasons I have you writing your teaching, because that is part of it. And there is research now. When we moved SBS online, so that you were doing all your work, all your charts on an online platform. And it worked great for like the teachers. It would be, send immediately to the teachers and they would grade online. They would actually type up notes for the grading and so on. But one of the things that we noticed was that the students didn't remember things that seemed to be pretty obvious. It's like it stopped. It's like there was less connection with what they were learning in the Word. And so we made it so that the first quarter went back to handwritten, which was kind of crazy. Like they could maybe do the insides of their charts, the inside of their, verticals in typing, but they would write the rest. So because they wanted them to have that connection and the what we call comprehension and understanding went up again. So it is something to know. So that's why I want you to write your lecture notes initially, just to get you going. So, all right, that's a tactile thing. All right, on here it says identifying the modalities among your audience. So that is a way for you to become more aware. Did I just drop something? Yes. So, it has visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. Notice their way of being. Notice how they study. I'm not going to go through all of this because you can read it. Observe their desk or office space, their IQs. And then there's some teaching strategies on page 4. Visual learners need to know the big picture before they can fit the details. So they need to see the forest before they see the trees. They need to have the big picture, generally. And so handing them an outline of lecture to follow is very nice for them. So, good. In lecture, It's good to have pictures, videos, charts, diagrams, timelines that illustrate how the information fits together. Handouts, overheads, PowerPoint, word pictures, or stories that help them visualize. And then encourage visual learners to sit in the front of the class because they get distracted very easily. So that's important. It's good for them to take detailed notes or doodle or draw those notes. So sometimes you can actually take notes in a mind mapping way if you're into that, and that's very helpful. It's good to use color. So I'm just going to leave it at that. The quote at the bottom, good teaching is teaching through a variety of learning channels. Most students can learn the same content, but how they receive and how they perceive that content is determined largely by their individual learning styles. So there's a whole bunch more on those different things, so you can look and peruse it. It's a lot of information. If it's too much information right now for what you need. You just need a basic understanding of it for your teaching. But it would be good to read through the rest of that and just kind of get an overview picture of what's going on with the visual and auditory and kinesthetic. Okay.